Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our discussions, our discoveries, our journeys, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2022. That brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion under this release at spine number 1118. And this is a work which is described as being from 1978, and the director is Martin Scorsese. And the name of the work is The Last Waltz. This is the extraordinary work from 1978, and it is from the legendary filmmaker, director, Martin Scorsese. And this features, among its incredible, electrifying gathering of artists and performers, at its very heart and soul, we have the figures of Rick Danko and Levon Helm and Garth Hudson and Richard Manuel and Robbie Robertson. The band. This is the work, the concert film, the music work, the epic work, which is The Last Waltz. So there is so much, I think, that one can say about The Last Waltz, this work, this documentary, this concert film. One way to describe it is, of course, as a cataloging and as a capturing on film for all eternity this performance, this final performance, this farewell performance, if you will, of the band and these members together in the context of this performance. And we see various songs and various guest performers join the band for these performances of these songs at this concert, the venue being, of course, a Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco in Thanksgiving of 1976. And so this is a kind of historic occasion, and we have therefore these electrifying and incredibly moving and emotional renderings of these very powerful and very famous songs of the era, and indeed of a representation of a type of capturing of time as a type of time capsule moment, as well as a reminder of the emblematic and deep rooted nature of the band and the music, and the heart and soul of what is being written, what is being expressed, and indeed what these songs represent to them and to the filmmakers and to the audience and to the guest performers, and indeed to an entire generation or many generations of music fans and music lovers alike. So there is a lot of meaning, a lot of heart, and a lot of weight, indeed, and a lot of a type of free will and spirit that is in the air, as well as the showing of the musical genius and craft and prowess of these performers and artists as we see them in their element and performing these wonderful songs, again, as captured by Martin Scorsese and company for all eternity. So we should mention, of course, the incredible lineup of guest performers. So, for example, Paul Butterfield, Eric Clapton, Neil Diamond, Dr. John, Bob Dylan, Emmylou Harris, Ronnie Hawkins, Joni Mitchell, Van Morrison, The Staples, Ringo Starr, Muddy Waters, Ron Wood, Neil Young, Michael McClure, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and also featuring in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, or at least for the most part, maybe the disembodied voice, although sometimes it is embodied. That being of Martin Scorsese, who is the director, also a type of interviewer as well, because interspersed between or in intervals between and among the many splendid musical numbers that we have collected here, we also have interview portions. I interview portions with members of the band, Robert Robertson, etc. And we have these one-on-one discussions between Martin Scorsese and the band members, talking about where they are, a little bit of the history perhaps, although this is not a documentary focusing on the band. It's not a documentary focusing on the formation, the history of the band, the performance history of the band, etc. Although those details do emerge in these interview discussions here and there. But what also emerges in this film, in these interviews, for example, is maybe the mindsets of the members, and also their recollections of certain feelings or memories that they have, as well as their thoughts about the present, and indeed for some as well the future, what it is they hold, as well as their details and feelings about the place, the setting, the feeling and atmosphere, the history that is involved with the particular physical locations and the like. And so those details emerge in such fine form with these interviews, and that structure that, of course, provides a nice backbone structure to what could be said also to be in many ways the type of main attraction event, that being the concert itself. Now this, I think, provides a lot of great detail and background and structure as well, because this is, on the one hand, a concert film narrative structure of sorts, because we have the performances, one performance followed by another performance followed by another performance, etc. And we have different vantage points covered from a variety of cameras, although that's another interesting aspect that comes up in terms of how this particular concert was filmed, and maybe some of the artistic choices and maybe some of the artistic limitations or restrictions placed upon the camera operators and the like, in order to, on the one hand, accomplish the mission of trying to capture the event, while at the same time not getting in the way and not being in front of the concert or the stage and the audience. In other words, trying to be invisible and yet trying to capture these moments in a direct fashion and in a way that will be assembled together to form what would ultimately become this great work, which is The Last Waltz. So that is an interesting production element detail in and of itself. But in this fashion or manner, the structure of the documentary, we have this an interesting sequence of performances, again accompanied by the various guest performers that we have at the time, and it has a certain sense of a linear structure, although there is an interesting way in which chronology is twisted and manipulated to provide a sense of a type of epic grandeur, which is consistent with the heavy weight and gravity of this historic event, while at the same time respecting the absolute lyrical and musical genius that is on display, and almost an improvisational, a whimsical feeling and style and flair and atmosphere that is almost like a once in a lifetime type of moment, and many of those once in a lifetime types of musical moments captured on film in this particular concert setting. So in that way, the structure is quite fascinating here. And I should say, too, that in speaking of the structure, I spoke about how this was primarily a type of live concert event that is captured on film. That's, I think, for the most part, true in terms of the wealth of such say, documentary footage that is then assembled for purposes of the work. However, what is very interesting, too, is that there are certain performances as well. Not all of them, but certain performances that, due to maybe specific issues of filming at the time, or limitations of film stock, or inability to get a proper coverage, etc., for whatever reason, which I think is expounded upon in, say, certain areas of the supplemental material, such as the one of the commentary tracks, which is part of the Criterion package here, and we'll talk about momentarily. But due to maybe certain specific reasons, there might not have been the ability to cover all of the songs that were performed live at that particular moment in time. And so the decision was made to make room in studio sound stages after the fact for a specific staged filming of performances of certain songs like Evangeline or Evangeline, which is an interesting detail too, which emerges in one of the other commentary tracks, by the way. So that's one example of the performance. The Wait is another example of one of these staged performances. And so what that allows for is this idea of the filmic language that is on display, and it's this idea of a type of, on the one hand, a cinema verite, on the spot type of pre-planned filming, of course, but also pre-planned, but with room for improvisation and on-the-spot thinking, because one of the exciting and indeed maybe thrilling and also risky aspects of shooting a live concert is maybe the risk of not getting coverage or not getting the angle, or maybe running out of film as the camera is rolling, and things of that nature. And so in that way, we have on the one hand this almost cinema verite excitement that is part of the filming component of much of the film. At the same time, with these other staged components. And I think a song like The Wait and the performance of The Wait is one of the great highlights of this, as well as one of the great highlights of this work, The Last Waltz. What we see here is this incredible use of camera design and movement within a sound stage, sometimes with incredible sweeping camera movements like crane angles and the like. In some of the commentary tracks, comparisons to crane shots in very famous, say, Hitchcock films comes to mind. The use of lighting, the use of these sweeping movements, which is very reminiscent also of past and also maybe future works by Scorsese himself. This brings about the cinema language, the constructed cinema language, and I say constructed in a very positive way because this is meant to augment and accentuate the poetry of the moment. The use of cinema to accentuate the poetry of the moment, which is the music of the band that's being performed. And so we have these, in essence, these differing philosophies on the approach to the music documentary, the concert documentary, or the concert film, but they are merging and blending in a way that is so, on the one hand, subtle, but also very stark and very much in contrast with each other. But that contrast works to the film's advantage because it adds a sense of balance, it adds a sense of nice rhythm and flow. It also adds a sense of bravura and flourish, as well as giving us a sense of the live and the uncertain, and indeed the excitement that lies within the uncertainty, as well as giving us ultimately what is the main attraction, as it were, these showstopper numbers, these show-stopping moments that are just incredible and breathtaking to watch. And so this is my way, therefore, to say that this is a film that is a film about the band, featuring the band and the performance that they are giving, with the various guest performers that join them, with all the love, all the human emotion, all the weight and history behind their performances and the like. I mean, there's mention the featuring, say, of Bob Dylan. Of course, there's that is also mentioned as part of, say, the commentary track discussion and maybe some of the history of the behind the scenes of the making of The Last Waltz, etc., as well as a reminder of the history of the band going many, many years and the like. And so we have those elements too on display, and either hinted at or perhaps directly referenced. But whatever the case may be, we have this incredible blend of the cinematic flourish of Martin Scorsese, also the performance magic and historical aspect of this moment in time, of this farewell performance of the band. And so we have these wonderful elements blending together to form this magnificent, epic work that is about American music, that is about the history and sweep of music, that is also about a history the history of cultures and ages and styles and people, as well as being capturing this very magical, special, and musically significant moment in time of this performance of the band, as well as being this great example of the bravura and the artistry of the cinematic prowess of Martin Scorsese and company. So there is so much to enjoy here, as well as, of course, the great music and the performances and the gritty, energetic, once in a lifetime types of performances that are on display here. And one of the great things about the commentary track too is we get a number of musical, say, maybe experts, and also a lot of takes on how these performances were in many ways groundbreaking, even for the band, in terms of how far they were willing to go in terms of their emotional range and what they were willing to reach in terms of their expressions, and how those expressions seem to be reaching deep down into their souls, and indeed maybe touching upon fundamental aspects of, say, American history and say aspects of various aspects of, say, musical history and musical traditions and historical traditions and the like. So there is so much on display in this assembly of musical fireworks extravaganza that is, as I say, captured on film, celluloid for eternity. And this is the work, therefore, which is from 1978, from the director Martin Scorsese, which is The Last Waltz. The Criterion Collection has released this film, The Last Waltz, on this release here, which is what's here on the table is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition. Again, at spine number 1118. And so this is yet another example of Criterion taking advantage of the 4K UHD format in what we have seen so far as being these combo editions. So we have the 4K UHD disc and then also the Blu-ray disc. And so let us speak very briefly about this presentation. The presentation itself is described in the insert leaflet, the fold-out leaflet, which I've taken the liberty of removing prior to the start of this video. And it says here about the restoration: The Last Waltz is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. This new 4K digital restoration was created from a scan of the 35mm original camera negative made in 16-bit 4K resolution on a Laser Graphics Director film scanner at Roundabout Entertainment in Burbank, California. A 35mm print courtesy of Scalia Productions was used as a color reference. On the 4K Ultra HD disc, the feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR, high dynamic range. On the Blu-ray, it is presented in high definition SDR, standard dynamic range. And also a word about the soundtrack options, because there are a number of them available. So first of all, one of which being the 5.1 surround. The 5.1 surround soundtrack was remixed from the original 2-inch 24-track magnetic masters in 2001 by Ted Hall in Santa Monica, California, under the supervision of Robbie Robertson. Stereo mixes and stems made by Robertson's mixer, Dan Yeller, and approved by Robertson were used in the creation of the 5.1 surround mix. So we have this from 2001, so the 5.1 surround mix. Also from 2001, we have the stereo mix option. And then also yet another option is the original 1978 2.0 surround. So there are three different audio options, as well as having yet other audio options with regard to the commentary tracks, two of them, and so we'll talk about that later. So just a word here about the visuals and the sound here. So I had the great honor of being able to watch this. You know, I've seen this a number of times, but I never saw it in the theater. So I don't have that frame of reference, unfortunately. But I have seen this a number of times, and I must say that watching this on the 4K format and listening to it, and I listened to it, watched it a number of times with the different soundtrack options available to me, and I thought all soundtrack options were outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. I was very much pleased with them, and I maybe have a preference for the 78. The 78 soundtrack option, although the other two options from 2001 and 2001 respectively, I think are also wonderful to have. So that those options to be made available here are outstanding in terms of a musical preference choice for the viewers and the consumers of this particular Criterion product. Now, as for the visuals, I must say too that for me, I was very impressed with the 4K presentation. Here, I watched the 4K UHD disc, and I watched the Blu-ray disc presentation. So, for me, I found the presentations to be incredible, stellar, quite beautiful, and very warm and accepting. And the use of colors. I mean, one of the great aspects of this film is the use of color and the color palette and the lighting and the way that the set and the set decor shines, as well as the way that the shadows and the silhouettes play off, and as well as the bright shining lights that shine on these great performers as they are singing and playing their hearts out on the stage for everyone to see, and as well as the stage, as well as the sound stages as well. So I thought that the presentation was absolutely wonderful. So I'm very pleased with this. I should say too that I was very fortunate some time back also to get this, which is the Eureka Masters of Cinema release of The Last Waltz. So I was very happy about this, although I'm very, very pleased with this Criterion presentation, and so I'm very happy with this. So the 4K format again shines once again with another Criterion release here with The Last Waltz. I should say perhaps maybe in the context of the 4K format in the hands of Criterion, for the most part we have seen Criterion with its 4K UHD releases, or the combo package releases, to be relying on what is known as the packaging, or the digipack packaging, this sort of outer cardboard-like shell, and the interior compartment, which has the slide-in, slide-out function. But that's not the case for all of their releases. Some releases in the 4K format from Criterion do utilize not the digipack format, but instead this plastic case, Scanovo casing-like format with the double discs, or the two discs housed in this compartment way. They are layered like this, but not so as to touch in terms of the surface. And so maybe something a little bit maybe of my physical media loving heart just a little bit might have wanted to see this, say, in a lovely digipack packaging format to, say, be a signal of some kind of, say, consistency with Criterion and its 4K releases. But as I say, that's not true for all of the 4K releases from Criterion. That's okay. And still, the fact that we're getting this in this format from Criterion is glorious news enough for me. So well done, Criterion, for being able to do this and to continue with the Criterion 4K format in this fashion for The Last Waltz. So let us now turn to the supplemental materials that can be found as part of this Criterion release. So let us start with the commentary tracks. There are 2 commentary tracks, and these commentary tracks actually have been made available in prior non-Criterion releases. So these aren't anything new per se, but that doesn't make them any less rewarding to listen to. They are each in their own ways incredibly rewarding and fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to listen to these commentary tracks, both of them, please, yes, you would be doing yourself a great favor by listening to or watching the film with these commentary tracks, because they are so filled with information, and they're so filled with this great rapport and this great take, sometime after the fact of the performance, of course, but all the same, these are great commentary tracks, and I'm so glad that Criterion was able to get them and include them here for this. So the first of such commentary tracks is one that features Martin Scorsese and Robbie Robertson, and so this is edited in a ways that they aren't necessarily talking to each other, but they are speaking kind of separately, and then their comments are then edited together for purposes of creating this one long commentary track, and it is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So from Robbie Robertson, we get a lot of the comments from him about the specific, aspects of the musical performance, the idea of maybe certain details that emerged when he was being interviewed by Scorsese during the interview components of the film. There's an interesting aspect early on with one of his interviews with the flag of Canada that's very prominent in the background. So he makes mention of little details like this, as well as talking about San Francisco, Winterland, and specific performances. Like the wait or don't do it, etc., and talking about details about where the members were at the time, or what were the specifics of, say, the musical contributions of the artists that are being featured here, etc. And not just the musical artists, but also the poets as well, because as mentioned earlier, we have the among the guest features are poets like Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Michael McClure, etc. So it's wonderful to get these takes from Robert Robertson about these and other aspects. He also talks about meeting Scorsese and maybe the lead up to having Scorsese ultimately be having his primary involvement be what it was in terms of the director and the filmmaker that was responsible for the ultimate creation and assembly of this concert film, The Last Waltz. And so there's mention of Scorsese's work, say, on the earlier work called Woodstock. And so there is a musical sensibility there, as well as this a way in which he has this command and understanding of how the camera is to be utilized in the context of a live concert film, and multiple camera work, etc. And so this also is interwoven, or these comments from Robertson are interwoven with comments from Scorsese himself, as I say, in this edited fashion, or excerpt edited fashion for this commentary track, where we have concepts from Scorsese talking, say, about maybe specific technical aspects, shooting from various vantages, angles. There were a number of directors of photography that were involved here. So there's Michael Chapman, and also included in the group of extraordinary photographers or directors of photography, Vilmos Zsigmond and Laszlo Kovacs, just to give two prominent examples here. And so we have the maybe limitations or the concerns of the camera operating. That means, say, where the angles would be, which filmmakers would, or which directors of photography, or which photographers would be shooting what kind of philosophy of the photography comes through or shines through in terms of what vantage points are taken, the risks of shooting in terms of filming. There's a really interesting anecdote that appears with regard to one of the key performances, Muddy Waters, which is a legendary performance, but it almost wasn't. It was something that almost wasn't filmed for specific reasons that are mentioned in the commentary track and elsewhere. So that is a reminder of just how much skill and how much luck and how much chance and how much planning goes into the creation of this extraordinary work like The Last Waltz. And so Scorsese does make mention of these and other points of the technical aspect of the filmmaking process, as well as his own understanding of the music and the feeling and the heart and the rhythms and the dynamics. You know, he talks about the band and about how the music and the band and the history of the band operate also like a catalog or discussion of history, of American history, of musical traditions as well as cultural traditions. And so he talks about the various, say, influences of musical traditions that are infused in this modern take on these traditional musical traditions and the band's expressions of these, as well as aspects of, say, the American South, or maybe certain classical instrument playing, etc., and also a type of spiritual or religious or very emotional or even psychological portrait that is being presented, not just in the lyrics that have been prepared and written for these songs, but also in the performance themselves. And so I think one of the great examples that Scorsese indeed speaks to is what I mentioned earlier, one of the highlights of this film, which is the performance of The Weight. And he talks about how this was a very much like a spiritual song. This was like also like a kind of gospel choir song, as well as a song that was speaking from the heart, singing out, crying out, if you will, with a lot of implications of the individual spirit, as well as the broad context of a culture and society. And so to have the song like this here was really important. And indeed, speaking of The Weight, this is one of the performances that, as we know, is set in the stage or the sound stage rather than the live concert performance. And Scorsese does mention maybe the reasons why this was in terms of technical reasons and the like. And so this is yet another example of how great this commentary track is. So the commentary track featuring Martin Scorsese and Robbie Robertson with their comments edited or spliced together to form this one continuous commentary track. This is well worth it. Other points are mentioned too, like the set decoration, set decor, the inspiration from, say, opera and opera performances, the performance of Eric Clapton and the story about the breaking of the guitar strap that Robbie Robertson conveys, talking about Van Morrison and his incredible electrifying performance and his physical performance as well as his musical performance on stage. And so Robert Robertson talks about these details and other details as well that emerge. Dylan, of course. So for these and other reasons, this commentary track is so worth it. So please check it out if you haven't already. But that's not all, because I mentioned there were two commentary tracks. The second commentary track is also one that has been featured on prior non-Criterion releases, but once again, it's great to have it here because it's great. It really is great. So well done for being able to get this. And this is a commentary track that features, again, in this collection of speakers that are speaking, and their comments are edited together for purposes of this one continuous commentary track. The second commentary track, which features, among others, Levon Helm and Garth Hudson, as well as Jay Cox, Greil Marcus, Jonathan Taplin, Steve Prince, Michael Chapman, John Simon, Erwin Winkler, Dr. John, Ronnie Hawkins, Mavis Staples, etc. And this is a gathering or collection of their comments, speaking to specific moments of the commentary. Some are speaking to, say, a type of maybe talking about from maybe a music appreciation standpoint. A lot of the comments, for instance, from Greil Marcus speak to that, about the significance of these specific performances and how they are similar to or quite different from how the songs were performed by the band on previous occasions. And so there is a lot of that musical history, the band history, that is being conveyed in some of these comments here from some speakers. Yet other speakers are speaking directly from their direct experience, like Levon Helm or Garth Hudson or Dr. John, or Ronnie Hawkins, etc. Mavis Staples, because they're speaking about their anecdotes because they were there. And so it's wonderful to get those great anecdotes. Speaking of anecdotes, there's a wonderful anecdote involving the Staples and Pops and Levon Helm and Pops and a cigarette. And so that is a great example of some of the warmth of the anecdotes that are on display in this particular commentary track. And yet other great moments are spoken about, specific aspects. I mentioned to how the greatness of these performances are spoken about here, Up on Cripple Creek, or Baby Don't You Do It, or Stage Fright, Evangeline, and there's an interesting detail too about the pronunciation of the name too, which I always get a kick out of when I listen to that, and the like, and also aspects of the shooting and filming. And I mentioned that some of the performance sequences were soundstage centric, and so there was this room for the way in which the camera sweep and camera movements were part of these processes. um, and the like. And so, and then the editing process and Martin's comments here, and etc. And the lighting also is featured here, and also the way in which maybe Martin Scorsese was making this film in between making other, say, feature film projects, and so that was also an interesting, say, tale in and of itself. And so, for these and other reasons, we have the second commentary track, which is amazing, which is excellent. Now, just one very minor detail I should mention. The Criterion Collection release here is really splendid in a lot of ways, and it does have the optional a subtitle feature, so you can press it and it'll give you the subtitles for the the film. But one of the subtitle features that it doesn't have, that say can be found in other releases like this Eureka Masters of Cinema, is yet another optional subtitle feature. Now, what's great about the Masters of Cinema release in regards to the second commentary track is that this also had the subtitle option of actually giving us the name of the person that was speaking during the second commentary track, because there are so many people that are featured, and so sometimes it might get one might get lost, for someone like myself who's not automatically able to recognize the voices. Then having an optional subtitle track, which will accompany commentary track 2, which is the subtitling of the names of the speakers as they are heard on the commentary track. That is very helpful. Now, I don't think that's a part of the Criterion feature. I checked it; it didn't appear. It's not listed in the back here. So that is something that maybe a minor criticism of the Criterion was. It would have been great if it had that optional subtitling feature for the second commentary track that is otherwise made available on, say, an earlier non-Criterion release like Masters of Cinema. But that is a minor criticism. The fact that the second commentary track and the first commentary track, by the way, are included are, again, cause for celebration. Wonderful stuff indeed. So please check these out if you can. Now, when we get to the supplements, as we know with these combo releases, we have the 4K disc, which has, of course, the film itself in that presentation, and also the audio options made available in that presentation, as well as the Blu-ray disc itself. But then the Blu-ray disc goes in terms of the supplemental features. You can go to the Blu-ray disc and check out those supplemental features there. And so, speaking of the supplemental features that are also included for this packaging of The Last Waltz, we have the following. The first is a one-on-one discussion between David Fear from Rolling Stone and Martin Scorsese. And this is described as being from 2021, approximately 31 minutes. Martin Scorsese on The Last Waltz, a conversation with David Fear. And this is great because we have this contemporary discussion about this work from the late 70s. And here we have comments from Scorsese about how he remembered discovering the band for the first time. This idea from his vantage point about how the band and the music seem to be encapsulating or capturing something very fundamental and essential on the one hand, yet also feeling very fresh and contemporary on the other hand. And so that mix of, say, tradition and modernity as expressed or represented in the music of the band. This was something very important for Scorsese, and how the songs were, in his words, like little narratives, little stories that he could latch onto with characters, or maybe the same characters or even different characters encompassing or embodying or inhabiting the same space, and the voices can be the same or different. And he mentions again a key song for him, and indeed for many people, which is The Weight. It has this what he calls this idea of responsibility and the mystical and the biblical. And so this is really quite wonderful indeed. And also the band itself talking about the exploration of a type of human history, as well as the brilliance of the music. He mentions the idea of Irish tradition, Southern tradition, folk songs and the like, 19th century notions and philosophies. This idea of maybe adventure, or the feeling of adrift, of out to sea, seeking, searching, longing, journey, and also the idea or the concept of the barn burner songs and the like. And also the discussion here then turns to the relationship between Scorsese and the band members, specifically also Robbie Robertson, because as we know, there is this long relationship, personal and professional, between Robbie Robertson and Martin Scorsese. And so this is a really interesting maybe point along that fascinating journey between these two men. And Martin Scorsese then remarks too about how he understood a little bit about the history and background and the state that the band was in, but he says here that he didn't know the specifics of where these people were at the time. So he didn't necessarily know the details of the maybe the dynamics or the reasons for the specific, say, details of the relationships, etc. But he did have a general impression or idea. But the purpose or mission for him was the capturing of this farewell performance. And so for that, he relied too on his expertise both as a filmmaker and also as an appreciator of film. Jazz on a Summer's Day, Woodstock. These are reference points that are mentioned here and elsewhere. And also the idea of the concert film as a type of time capsule, but also so much more experience in a given point in time, but also connecting to a universal experience that can be accessed, potentially from any age and from any person. And so also there are choices here that are discussed about the choice of shooting, shooting in color stock, 35 millimeter, and the like, and also the reasons or the choices behind having the interview structure as well as the concert structure, and also the reasons behind employing sound stage staging for a number of the numbers. And also editing considerations are mentioned, shooting configurations I mentioned too, the idea of the camera configuration setup, and the multiple directors of photography that were involved in the project. And also the idea of the film having a type of theatricality to it, which I think is very important. There is a sense of drama that's taking place as expressed in the comments of the participants, also in the music itself. And so there is a type of, and the story of the lyric and the songs, as Scorsese mentioned, to him also another way of looking at the songs are like little narratives. And so these are like episodes of stories of the landscape of human drama played out in the context of this historic performance of the band. And so in that way, there is a sense of purposely applied theatricality as well as a consideration of this work in the context of Scorsese's documentary film oeuvre. So for these and other reasons, this conversation is well worth checking out if you can. Once again, this is approximately 31 minutes. Well done, great stuff. That's not all, because then we have a supplement which is described as being from 1978, and this is described as being from Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, described in April 1978, featuring Martin Scorsese and Robbie Robertson, and this is approximately 15 minutes. And so here we have some kind of discussion or interview takes or excerpts, if you will, again from the contemporary, from that current time, speaking about, say, the film process or the filming process, also the idea of the live captured footage versus the quote-unquote reshoots, and that is the relationship between the live concert footage on the one hand and the soundstage footage on the other, or those filmed performance numbers on the other. The idea of those examples, another example that is brought up is the theme of the suite, the last waltz suite itself, which forms a lovely bookend in terms of the opening credits and indeed the closing, how this film ends in this very heartwarming way. So That is also a part of the quote-unquote reshoots or the soundstage design of these particular numbers, and also talking a little bit about maybe giving a little sense or glimpse as to the choices of the choice involving no longer going on tour and the like, and this being the farewell or indeed the last waltz. And so these and other details emerge again in this great fascinating excerpt, 15 minutes featuring Martin Scorsese and Robbie Robertson from 1978. And that's not all, because then we have the documentary, the 2002 documentary, which has been featured in other past releases, but once again, Criterion being able to include it here is wonderful. We have this documentary, approximately 22 minutes, called Revisiting the Last Waltz, Stephen Altobello. And here we have the great... we have more insight into, say, the production design, the set design, set decor, the choice in terms of San Francisco Winterland, and transforming this into this sort of operatically designed stage. The La Traviata is mentioned as well. Also talking again about the planning, the pre-planning, again this concept of the live concert footage versus the sound staged setups of songs like The Wait and Evangeline, and also there is reference to the great performances such as Muddy Waters, etc. So this is another great documentary to have for those who know The Last Waltz, and for those who have prior, say, non-Criterion Last Waltz releases on physical media, etc. You'll probably have seen this documentary before, but that's okay. It's great to revisit it. It's great to revisit what's called Revisiting the Last Waltz. So please check it out if you can. This is the 2002 documentary. And that's not all, because we also get what is described as the Outtake Jam Session 2. This is also something that maybe might not necessarily be new for those who already have seen The Last Waltz on prior releases, but still this is great to have. So this is the 12-minute outtake during the concert. It's described as a jam session, and this is a jam session that it's so great to see. And you have Robbie Robertson, Lee Von Helm, Garth Hudson, Paul Butterfield, Eric Clapton, Dr. John, Ringo Starr, Ronnie Wood Neal, and others. This is so great, and it's just a wonderful, yet there's a feeling and vibe and energy in the air. So many people on stage at once. It's mind-blowing. And then to have this type of celebratory atmosphere. I mean, you get that celebratory atmosphere in the main body of The Last Waltz as well, but this is another great reminder of that. And it's just it's a reminder of the electricity in the air and this power of music making on the spot, as it were, and with all these participants together devoted to that purpose. Oh, it's wonderful. So 12 minutes. Please check it out if you haven't done so already. And then we have the trailer, the 2-minute trailer, and then the approximately 30-second TV spot, which rounds out the supplements for this great release from Criterion of the film The Last Waltz. Now let's talk about the presentation. I spoke a little bit about the plastic casing presentation aspect of this release, but also let me speak about the overall design. This is, I mentioned the insert, which I have removed here. It is a fold-out, so on the one hand, I'm not a fan of the fold-out. However, on the other hand, I want to speak to two aspects which I think are really amazing. One is the essay itself. This is Long, Hard Road by Amanda Petrusich, and this is brilliant. This essay is absolutely brilliant. Amanda Petrusich goes into such loving detail and specificity about the brilliance of the performance of specific numbers, as well as the history and background of the band and the significance of this performance and the significance of this film in the overall context of the sweep of musical history, of the band history, of musical culture and the like. So, and also as I say, the significance of this particular performance. So, this essay is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Long, hard road. So please check out this essay if you can. And also, I should mention too the design elements. I love the design elements that are part of the packaging here. The last waltz, this design element that's relied upon for the cover art, and then also it's we have these elements of the here we go. Art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Seelman, designer Fred Davis. So I really enjoy that aspect very much. So maybe I should mention that that's not to say that I didn't enjoy other past releases. Let me mention once again the Eureka Masters of Cinema release. This has a really robust booklet with also this now iconic phrase. This film should be played loud. And so I must say that I really enjoy the Criterion essay, but I must say too that the Eureka Masters of Cinema booklet was and is so robust in terms of the edition I have here, the special Blu-ray edition as it says here, with this multi-writings and lots of photos and pictures and the like. So I would have preferred to see Criterion do something similar along lines similar to the Masters of Cinema booklet, which is excellent, absolutely excellent, by the way. But once again, I'm generally a fan of the printed booklet style rather than the fold-out style. But that's not to say that the essay that we get here isn't great. It is excellent. The Criterion essay is excellent, so please check it out if you can. I think in maybe conclusion, I'd like to say that this is an epic film. This is an epic film about history. This is an epic film about musical traditions, about modernity, about sort of the end of an era, in manner of speaking. This concert performance is also a film about filmmaking. It's a film in the context of the immense and incredible body of work from Scorsese and company. And also it's a film that is a magical and electrifying gathering of performers and artists, including a band who perform for all the world to see with all the splendor and joy and energy and artistry and genius of their craft and of their spirit and art. These performances live, sometimes staged as well in this wonderful flourish of cinematic poetry. Again, captured for all eternity in this form of film, which is called The Last Waltz. And so it's great to have this Criterion release with the various soundtrack options that were mentioned earlier, which is a great thing to have, as well as the inclusion of a number of supplements that were maybe made available in prior releases, but again, as a type of assembly of overall collection of supplement materials, commentary tracks, and the like. To have it also here for Criterion is wonderful, as well as having the additional new conversation with Scorsese, talking about his thoughts on The Last Waltz, looking back on this historic work. So, and then of course taking into consideration the 4K UHD format, which is spectacular. So there's so much to say about this rich and rewarding work, and the Criterion Collection has released it here in 2022, and that is this film, which is The Last Waltz. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.